This message is just for you. You are good enough. This is the episode for you. If you started your language or your big project with a bang, but now you're feeling a definite sense of dread when you even just think about going to work on it, I made this video just for you. So I think when we look over our lives so far, a lot of us have stories about finding something that inspires us, that we so desperately want to have in our lives, that for a while we jump at any opportunity to play with it. It might be a topic of fascination where we want to watch every single video, read everything we can find about it in our spare time. It might be starting a sport or learning a craft. Or maybe it's that thing was just such a great opportunity that we couldn't resist it because its promise was addictive. Of course, we'd want to drop everything to work on it wherever we could. But then one day, that feeling just goes away. Instead of that excitement and the curiosity, we're left just feeling either a bit flat and uninspired by the thing or downright resentful of it. And if this is you today, I want to invite you to really think about what's happened. And it might be something that you want to journal as well. Now, before we start, quick caveat, of course it's fine to genuinely lose interest in something and want to move on. It's also normal that if we find something new and better, we'd want to put that old thing to one side and move on to the next one because that feels like an act of progress. We've decided that old thing wasn't for us. But if this is something you're thinking about right now, and you're not sure whether moving on is a good idea or not, let's just do a quick audit, because then we know. So, in my experience of the people who I've worked with who were moving away from their language or their project rather than towards something else, it really was an act of aversion rather than being drawn to something. These are the most common themes that I've found in the reason that project lost its spark for them. Number one, they decided they were going to get serious about it. They took all the freedom that they had in their playground of fascination and they replaced it with rigid routines. They stopped thinking about what seemed interesting to them and started telling themselves that the only way to get this right was to focus on curricula or standards set by other people. They fixated on grades or metrics or app streaks, painstakingly measuring their perceived progress against any and every number available to them. And around the same time, they suddenly decided that they're deathly behind and they will need to be playing catch up every single time they come back to this thing. Number two, they turned it into an obligation. Oliver Burkeman, in his newsletter, The Imperfectionist, hit the nail on the head when he said, and I have abridged a bit here, one of my special talents, looking at my life so far, has been the amazing ability to turn any activity or opportunity, no matter how potentially delightful or exciting, into a burdensome obligation that I wish I didn't have to fulfill. For years, there was no professional opportunity so promising that I couldn't turn it into an oppressive chore, simply by agreeing to a deadline or signing a contract. Suddenly, now that it was real and I'd agreed to do it, I'd start hating the fact that I had to. Before, it was play. Before, it was dreaming. And now it's a duty. It has expectations and deadlines attached to it, and maybe they seem daunting or constricting. All of a sudden, there's been a shift in focus from following the next interesting thing to making sure we get the right outcome within the set time frame, and maybe even that what we produce pleases other people. And then we start to feel boxed in, and then we look around for an escape. Or number 3, perfectionism kicked in. They decided that if they were going to do this, they needed to be doing it at the highest possible level. Their everyday goals didn't look ambitious enough anymore, so they decided that they needed to raise the bar hugely. Everything we produce then feels embarrassing and amateur, and it's a disappointment for us every time. And we look around and we decide everyone else seems to find this easy. We look at what we've got and nothing feels good enough anymore. Playful exploration of our subject has pretty much given way to targets that we'll never reach and criticism that we'll never satisfy, because we keep raising the bar and keep raising the bar. And so we just leave feeling drained and a bit hopeless and like we have nothing much to offer. And so then, of course, we're contaminating our whole view of the time that we spent with that project. Of course, we don't want to come back to it the next day. We just don't want to feel like that. And so when you realize what's going on, it makes it so much easier to think, actually, I like what I'm doing. I hate how I'm doing it. Or I still think this is really useful for me, but I hate how I'm making myself feel when I'm working on it. So I want to ask you, what's happening for you right now, language learners? What's breaking your connection with your language or your project? Because just because you aren't feeling that connection now, it doesn't mean it's gone forever. You can get it back. You just need to know what's blocking it. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you back here tomorrow.